Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, the best phone camera yet. The Galaxy S21 Ultra has it all: a huge sensor main cam, an autofocusing ultra-wide, finally, and not one but two telephotos. It puts them to good use too, and delivers results that outshine our previous editor's choice, the Samsung's own Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. The main camera's 108 megapixels nanocell sensor bins pixels 9:1, producing wide dynamic range in both good light and at night, and this latest generation also makes for sharper photos. The high-res imager also enables 8K video recording, not our favorite feature, but it's there if you want to use it. What this sensor isn't spectacular at is short-range zoom, one of the few downsides of the S21 Ultra's camera system. 3x zoom and up, however, is where the S21 Ultra excels, thanks to its pair of telecams. Both modules put up a great performance at their native focal lengths, and in-between magnifications aren't too bad either. Going past the 10x zoom isn't out of the question, though 100x moon shots are perhaps best left for the marketing team. This Ultra's ultra-wide camera is better than all the others Samsung's put out to date. It's slightly sharper than before, but more importantly it adds autofocus, further extending its range of usability. The 40-megapixel selfie camera is also among the best ones we've seen. Hardware is seemingly identical as on the S20 Ultra, but the processing a big leap in the right direction. Now, rear cam portraits aren't as good as we'd like. The 108 megapixels cam isn't too good at zooming, and zoomed-in portrait mode is what the S21 Ultra defaults to. We're also seeing a bit more noise across the board in the S21 Ultra's photos and video. Not too bad, but uncharacteristic of Samsung's ways. Still, the good far outweighs the bad, so a well-deserved first place. Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, a valid alternative. The Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra is not just the most capable camera phone in the Galaxy family, it is arguably the most impressive camera phone ever. Instead of focusing on computational photography like the flagships from Google and Apple, the S20 Ultra goes for big wins with loads of megapixels. There are 108 in the main wide camera, 60 in the telephoto and 12 in the wide. That drive for high numbers is repeated around the front, where you'll find a 40-megapixel selfie lens poking out through the punch hole in the display. It's not all about the hardware though, and Samsung has thrown in a few new software tricks too. Space Zoom was the headline feature when the phone was announced, and it's easy to see why: a 100x hybrid zoom. Alright, it sounds more impressive than it is, and any images you take at 100x zoom aren't likely to be great, but the work in that area means shots at lower zoom levels compete with, and often surpass, those produced by similarly powerful camera phones. You'll also find the excellent single-take feature, which pulls stills, GIFs, and other shareable images from a single 10-second video. Existing features like night mode have also seen some improvements. All four rear cameras on this pricey smartphone are at least very good, with the main camera grabbing stacks of detail and a pleasing amount of depth. The S20 Ultra's ultra-wide camera gets more in the frame than most of the competition, while still grabbing plenty of detail and performing respectably across lighting conditions. The camera highlights don't stop there though. The S20 series can record video at up to 8K resolution, so videographers and photographers alike should be able to get the imaging edge over other smartphone snappers with one of these. All in all, the Galaxy S20 Ultra is an easy pick for the Best Camera Phone award. For a money-is-no-object type of consumer, that is. Google Pixel 5 and 4a 5G, a capable point-and-shoot camera phone with great software and editing smarts. Like Google's phones tend to be, the Pixel 5 isn't the most stunning camera phone from a hardware perspective. Mountain View swapped out the Pixel 4's telephoto lens for an ultra-wide at the behest of critics and users, but that's really the only measurable hardware change in store for the latest Pixel flagship. The rest, as is always the case with Pixel, is done in software and post. And boy, can the Pixel 5 churn out some magical images. The level of detail on display with this device is class-leading, particularly in mid and low light shooting scenarios. In our side-by-side comparisons, Google's Night Sight feature put Apple's night mode on the iPhone 11 Pro to shame. Surely, the iPhone 12 Pro has answered back, but that doesn't take away from the fact Google has raised the stakes again. The biggest knock against the Pixel 5's camera is that you can get it for much cheaper, either in single lens configuration in the $349 Pixel 4a, or in the exact same dual lens guise in the $499 Pixel 4a 5G. That makes the Pixel 5 a relatively poor value compared to the company's other phones. Compared to the industry at large though, there's almost no contest. The Pixel 5's photography really is that pretty. Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, best camera phone for fans of big phones. The new Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is the best camera phone you can buy today because it does everything well. Its primary 108-megapixel camera, which showed promise in the Galaxy S20 Ultra earlier this year but was hampered by glitches, has been improved with the use of a new dedicated laser autofocus sensor. The 12-megapixel telephoto uses a folded lens designed to achieve 5 times optical power, which obliterates the 2 times optical zoom of the iPhone 11 Pro, and can deliver lossless 10 times zoom, as well as up to 50 times digital zoom. The Galaxy Note 20 Ultra doesn't deliver better photos than Apple's premium iPhones in every instance. For example, it overly smooths faces in portrait shots, and has a tendency to blow out highlights. But there isn't much separating the overall image quality of these phones, plus the Note 20 Ultra offers infinitely more versatility, thanks to that high megapixel lens and peerless zoom power. It's simply the best camera phone no matter what your photo op demands. And at $1,299, you'd expect nothing less. OnePlus 9 Pro, a giant leap for OnePlus photography. OnePlus phones aren't often included on this list, and while the OnePlus 9 Pro still doesn't threaten the top spot, it's by far the best camera phone the company has put out at the time of its launch. It has a 48 megapixels main camera, an 8 megapixels telephoto 1, with 3.3 times optical zoom, a 50 megapixels ultra-wide 1, and a 2 megapixels monochrome 1, for boosting black and white shots. Of those, the ultra-wide is arguably the most notable, as it has a freeform lens design that reduces the barrel distortion often found at the edges of ultra-wide shots taken on other phones. The cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro were also developed in collaboration with Hasselblad, though that collaboration mostly only extended to color calibration and the design of the camera app. We expect more from this partnership on future OnePlus phones, but even here the results are noticeable, with accurate colors in photos. Some features can behave unpredictably. We had mixed results shooting in low light, but overall, we were pleased with the photos we took with the OnePlus 9 Pro, which now has both the hardware and software to keep up with the iPhone and the Pixel. And while the OnePlus 9 Pro has powerful manual controls, it also works well when taking photos in auto, so this is a strong point and shoot choice. With video recording at up to 8K quality too, and a capable 16 megapixels front-facing camera, the OnePlus 9 Pro is a good all-rounder as far as photography goes, and in most other ways. The phone is fast and responsive, and has a great-looking screen, as well as excellent handling, with a physical switch to set the noise profile. It's also great value for money, as a premium smartphone, but with a price much lower than many of the other flagships on the market. Apple iPhone 12 and 12 mini, the best Apple iPhone bang for your buck. While the iPhone 12 Pro and the Pro Max are far more focused on the cameras, the iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 mini still impress, and benefit from a number of new features. The main wide 12 megapixels camera now has an f-stop 1.6 lens, and it performs far better in low-light situations when compared to older iPhones, with nicer colors and exposure. The Smart HDR feature has been improved, and the Deep Fusion AI tech ensures photos are sharp. There are fewer upgrades to the ultra-wide camera, however you can now use the dedicated low-light mode while shooting with this secondary sensor. The lack of a zoom lens does mean that this isn't an ideal setup if you want to get closer to subjects, and there are far better choices on this list if zoom is an important feature for you. Video has been upgraded though, and you can shoot Dolby Vision HDR footage at 4K 30 FPS. Other features include an OLED screen, still with a notch and at 60 Hz, the fast A14 chipset, 5G, and support for MagSafe accessories. Google Pixel 4a, the best camera phone for cheap. One of the standout features of the Pixel 3a was its camera, and Google has made sure to bring its expertise to the next version. Pixel 4a packs in a single 12-megapixel sensor that dominates many camera phones sporting more than double the amount of camera on the back. Image processing power and low light shooting make the Pixel 4a a contender in the camera department with even the most premium phones, while managed to come in at a sub $400 price point. Along with the stellar camera, you'll be getting the sleek Pixel launcher, for a clean yet functional Android experience, as well as speedy updates guaranteed for 3 years. Despite the low price, Google has managed to whack a pleasing screen onto Pixel 4a. The OLED display offers sharp images, even without a 90Hz refresh rate. The 5.8-inch OLED sits nicely in a basic but still good quality feeling plastic body, that comes in a size that harkens back to a more one-handed friendly past. Before you settle on the 4a, however, it might be worth noting that Google recently released a 5G version of our favorite budget-friendly camera phone. The phone comes packed with the same camera and Snapdragon 760 5G processor as the flagship Pixel 5, and a larger 6.2-inch display. It's a little pricier than the regular 4a, but if you want the latest processor and a bigger screen, as well as the obvious benefit of 5G, this is a great low-priced camera phone to consider.
Samsung Galaxy S21 and S21 Plus, premium Samsung features at a lower price. You could easily select the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra as your go-to camera phone, and it would be an excellent choice. The S21 Ultra produced the best photos of any of the Galaxy S21 models released this year. However, at $1,199, it's not cheap. But Samsung released 3 S21 models, and if you're still looking for a big phone, then you should check out the $999 Galaxy S21 Plus. While it lacks the insane zoom capabilities of the S21 Ultra, the Galaxy S21 Plus still outdoes the other phones on this list for sheer zoom quality. And it takes nice regular photos to boot, even if Samsung likes to overexpose a bit in post and apply too much face smoothing in portraits and selfies. If you'd prefer a smaller, more pocketable device, the Galaxy S21 has the same camera setup as the S21 Plus, just in a smaller body. It also costs less at an appealing $799. While Samsung doesn't look to have tinkered with the imaging hardware upgrading to this year's Galaxy S21, the triple rear camera setup and single hole punch 10-megapixel selfie snapper gain a few new tricks. Those improvements include things like new modes for single take. This mode lets the phone take a variety of photos and videos using all 3 cameras with a single button press, and now it includes a slow-mo option. There's also now a director's view mode, which lets you shoot with the front and rear cameras at the same time. So you have a lot more options for your photographer's toolkit, and away from the new features, the core camera experience is still great, whichever lens you're using, though the 3x hybrid zoom here is no match for the 10x optical zoom offered by the S21 Ultra. In our tests, we found that the Galaxy S21 and S21 Plus were both capable of capturing detail-rich images in well-lit environments, with superb dynamic range, and rich bold colors that look as if they're going to leap straight off the screen. The phone's night mode also did an exceptional job at boosting the brightness of the image without adding pesky visual noise and blowing out street lights. Need a flagship smartphone that can pretty much do it all in the camera department? The Samsung Galaxy S21 and S21 Plus are the ideal candidates.
Apple iPhone 12 Pro, the best smartphone camera for most people. The best smartphone camera on the market. If we took Apple's word for it just a few years ago, the brand's praise for its iPhone 11 Pro seemed much bolder when it was released. But, it must be said, Apple has seriously recovered its technological edge, and more than made up for lost ground on its Android competitors with the last 2 iPhones. Admittedly, the photo module with its trio of 12-megapixel sensors is not enough to compete with Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra on paper. But Apple has really made a breakthrough with its software processing. Following in the footsteps of Google and its Pixel 5 on the field of AI to sublimate its photos, the iPhone 12 Pro has managed to exceed the result predicted by its spec sheet. The machine learning and the deep fusion technology provide overall good digital noise reduction, while maintaining the natural, almost process-neutral tone that the iPhone has always offered. There's no need to opt for the much more expensive iPhone 12 Pro Max when it comes with exactly the same photo module. With the Pro model, you get a telephoto lens compared to the basic iPhone 12, for more versatility. It's not the best camera phone on the market, but on iOS, there's no better, and we can only applaud Apple's progress in this area. Apple iPhone SE 2020, the best mid-range camera phone for iPhone users. The iPhone SE 2020 is a brilliant proposition, A $399 iPhone that takes the form factor and camera of the iPhone 8, and pairs it with the processor and software magic of the iPhone 11 Pro. The result is a pocket-friendly handset in terms of both size and price, with fusion technology that delivers highly respectable photographs and rock-solid 4K 60 FPS video with image stabilization. Its smaller 4.7-inch 720p screen isn't as bright and doesn't refresh as fast as the flagship models, but that also means that its battery doesn't get gobbled up as fast either. It sticks with Touch ID, great for the mask-wearing COVID era, and boasts Qi wireless charging. It's also IP67 water and dust resistant. Between the A13 Bionic chip and Apple standard software updates, the iPhone SE is the best value handset out there. Huawei Mate 40 Pro, almost the best camera phone money can buy. Huawei has been producing some of the best camera phones for years now, so it shouldn't come as much of a surprise to see the Huawei Mate 40 Pro sitting high up on this list. On the back of the Mate 40 Pro you've got a number of cameras. At the helm is a 50-megapixel camera. The sensor identical to the one included with the excellent Huawei P40 Pro Plus. Alongside it sits a 12-megapixel periscope camera, with 5x optical zoom, and a 20-megapixel ultra-wide one. And while our focus is the rear snappers, the Huawei Mate 40 Pro also has a decent setup on the front, with a 13-megapixel camera joined by a time-of-flight sensor for sensing depth. Snaps shot on the Mate 40 Pro definitely exhibit similar characteristics to the typical Leica look. You'll see the brand's logo on the camera module. Images are warm, rich and zingy, without looking mottled and over-processed like some photos taken on Samsung phones. Dynamic range is strong even in backlit scenes, and challenging subjects such as black cats and glass surfaces look textured and realistic. The low light performance continues this theme too, with very good results during testing. Throw in super stabilized video with impressive HDR for good measure, and you have a smartphone with a camera that's capable of excelling at any task you care to throw at it. Of course, the biggest issue here is the lack of Google services. There's no Google Play Store on the Mate 40 Pro, so that means no access to common apps like Google Pay, YouTube and Gmail. The lack of support for the underlying Google services also means some other apps won't work too, like Uber. This is why we only recommend it to buyers that place camera performance as their top priority when picking a phone.
Oppo Find X3 Pro, most unique. We were very impressed with the camera on the Oppo Find X2 Pro, and it's no surprise the follow-up is another excellent camera phone. The Oppo Find X3 Pro boasts an atypical 50-megapixel wide camera with a 50-megapixel ultra-wide. Both use the new Sony IMX766 sensor for optimal quality across the board. The duo of main sensors are both great. During testing they consistently captured reliable pictures in all conditions. Images are beautifully vibrant and colorful, with distortion on the ultra-wide kept very much to a minimum. There are certainly some similarities in the color tuning to the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, with an emphasis on punchy greens and reds. The main sensors are more than capable of shooting in lower light situations too, with a multi-exposure night mode for when light is really at a minimum. Pictures we took in near darkness came out bright and with plenty of detail. Along with these two great cameras, you've also got a decent 13-megapixel telephoto lens for zoomed shots, and a 3-megapixel microscope lens for up to 60 times magnification. The latter is little more than a gimmick, but a clever and fun one, while the zoom is a bit of a disappointment when compared to the outgoing X2 Pro. Oddly, the older phone proved capable of better results while zooming during testing. Oppo used a periscope lens last time around to offer far superior zoom, and that's been ditched here, likely to keep the phone slimmer. The rest of the phone impresses, just like the camera. There's a lovely 6.7-inch 1440p OLED display with HDR support and high levels of brightness. Inside you've got a Snapdragon 888 chipset with 5G, 12GB of RAM, and 256GB of storage. Keeping the phone going is a 4500 mAh battery that charges up via a 65 watts fast charging.
Huawei P40 Pro, best value flagship camera, but Google issues hold it back. Huawei's successor to the fantastic P30 Pro is a worthy follow-up from a camera point of view, but the phone isn't as easy to recommend as its predecessor. The reason for this has nothing to do with its hardware, it's all down to the US-China trade war, and the fact Huawei can't use Google services on its phones at the moment. Google stuff aside for a second, And there's no denying the camera power behind this flagship smartphone. It packs 4 cameras around the back and 2 on the front. Delivering a stellar main camera with a 50 megapixel sensor resolution, and a nice and wide 23mm field of view, come day or night, it nails it. Then there's the 5x periscope zoom, it pulls in close and stays sharp. Add to the mix an ultra-wide, GoPro style camera, as well as a depth sensor, and all your bases are covered, with the P40 Pro bettering big hitters from Apple, Google, and Samsung. OnePlus 8 Pro, best camera phone for ease of use. The cameras on OnePlus phones have come a long way in a few years, and the photographic capabilities on the 8 Pro are up there with some of the best. Shots from the main camera are sharp and colorful, while the 48 megapixel ultra-wide is one of the best around. This is a sub $1,000 phone, so there are sacrifices. There's no impressive zoom here, just a standard 3x8 megapixel sensor, and the fourth camera is merely a color filter sensor that does very little. Elsewhere the camera is capable of 4K video at 60 fps, and there's a 16 megapixel camera and a small cutout on the front. Once your photos are snapped, you can view them on the stunning 6.78-inch OLED 120Hz panel. It has full support for HDR and 10-bit color, a Quad HD Plus resolution, and some motion smoothing skills. Is it the best camera phone? It's definitely up there, but it can't stack up to some other flagships. That said, as a package, it could be the best value across the board. Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, still great. Galaxy S series phones have traditionally been right up there for camera quality, and the S10 Plus is no exception. Its triple rear cameras may seem slightly lacking compared to the latest quad camera phones, but the wide, ultra-wide, telephoto combo is versatile and performs very well. Don't be put off by the main camera sensor being only 12 megapixels, the 40 and 48 megapixel sensors in rival phones, almost always record at 10 and 12 megapixels respectively in real-world shooting. We also like Samsung's commitment to quality 4K video, adding new digital video stabilization, along with HDR10 Plus support, for ultra-high contrast video that looks great on a compatible TV. Oppo Find X2 Pro, an excellent all-round smartphone camera. Oppo has been relatively unknown until recently, but it landed with a bang when it launched one of the best smartphones of 2020, the Find X2 Pro. From a camera point of view, the X2 Pro wows, introducing Sony's new 48 megapixel sensor to the world. Grabbing high-resolution photos with beautiful depth and plenty of detail. The great thing about photos shot on the Find X2 Pro is that they look natural and realistic, especially when set aside those captured on Samsung phones. Packing a 5x zoom telephoto camera, the Pro also gets you close to the action, and its ultra-wide camera is a pin-sharp 48 megapixel, for GoPro-esque shots you can crop into. Delivering flagship power, decent battery life, and an absolutely jaw-dropping screen, inside and out, the X2 Pro impresses. That said, we haven't even covered the phone's two standout features. The X2 Pro delivers the fastest charging on the market, powering up from 0 to 100% in 38 minutes, not to mention over half a terabyte of storage as well. In turn, power users will love the fact Oppo has well and truly arrived. Xiaomi Mi Note 10, a budget alternative. The Xiaomi Mi Note 10 is a mid-range phone with some high-end device design traits. It packs 5 cameras, a main 108 megapixel sensor and a generously sized battery that lasts pretty well. Most of the cameras that feature on the Mi Note 10's rear are impressive. There are 2 zoom lenses, an ultra-wide lens, and a dedicated macro. The macro sensor is the only real dud. In almost all situations the other cameras offer better results. Normal shots are packed full of detail, 108 megapixel shots even more so. The camera is unusually good at dealing with the light levels of tricky scenes such as sunsets. However, the camera is where you'll discover the Xiaomi Mi Note 10's most significant performance issues. It's slow. There's shutter lag of around half a second, and image processing takes a long time. However, you do get plenty of hardware for your money, and despite its flaws, the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 offers good value. Apple iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max, the best point-and-shoot camera phones. The iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max may face a formidable challenge from the Samsung Galaxy S20 line where photography is concerned. But Apple's phones remain among the best camera phones available, and are certainly the best choice for iOS loyalists. Both premium iPhones incorporate ultra-wide-angle and telephoto lenses, though those are the least of the enhancements Apple has made to its newest flagships. The real work has been done in software, where the new iPhone's computational photography and video capabilities have been stepped up massively. Apple's night mode sets a benchmark for low-light photography within the industry, while the company's smart HDR technology utilizes a breakthrough machine learning technique, called semantic rendering, to selectively over or underexpose specific areas of the scene differently. And on the video front, all three of the iPhone 11 Pro's rear cameras can record at 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, and even the front-facing shooter captures slow-motion clips for dynamic and dramatic selfies. Both the regular 5.8-inch model and the 6.5-inch Max variant feature the same cameras, while the cheaper 6.1-inch iPhone 11 ditches the telephoto lens, but can still capture the same quality photos otherwise. Huawei P30 Pro, still my favorite. Until not too long ago, smartphone cameras were capable of achieving good results in bright light conditions, but you wanted to make sure to carry your DSLR with you when shooting low-light images. Things have now changed. Thanks to a combination of new sensor technologies and innovative computational imaging methods, many of the latest generation of high-end smartphones are more than capable of delivering good results in dim conditions, and the Huawei Mate 30 Pro is the best among them. Its primary camera uses an unusually large quad-Bayer sensor, and Huawei has implemented frame stacking technology and other computational trickery to enhance the camera's light-gathering capabilities even further. The Huawei also comes with a dedicated night mode that performs fairly well for landscape scenes, with low noise and decent target exposure. We did observe some color issues when using this mode though. All in all, the Mate 30 Pro can't be beaten for low-light smartphone photography, and is a safe bet for anyone who regularly takes images in dim conditions.